The roots of reuse is a concept that Leia Mocan came to us with to really find a unique way to engage the artists in the show community and the community at large around the concept of sustainability. You know, in society, often art serves as a bit of a mirror to you know, the general public, and I think this project really serves an opportunity to address some of the challenges that we're all facing from an environmental perspective and the human relationship with the environment. So the project really is an inspiring way to have artists really reflect on their practice in maybe a different way from the way they're used to, or some of them to advance even further in the ways that they've already been thinking about in a sustainable fashion.
Roots of Reuse is an initiative developed in partnership with the LARC venue and supported by the Art Council. Our goal is to showcase the creative process of 4 established artists from Balbriggan who incorporate eco-friendly practices in their work. These artists were asked to donate a few art objects which were considered waste, maybe pieces that were not used in the previous exhibitions due to imperfections, maybe pieces of work which were started but not finalized, or even test objects. These donated items are being transformed by another participating artist into new objects, and the viewers are invited to witness their creative journey. This video highlights the creative potential of objects which are considered waste and are often overlooked, while also celebrating the talent of our local artists.
I became involved in this piece, Roots of Reuse. I'm an artist in the Scale Collective as well. But I wanted to participate as a curator. I think the Roots of Reuse is an interesting concept as an art piece. It's pulling together some very experimental aspects, some innovative aspects. It's challenging artists to perhaps use materials and approaches and formats that they wouldn't typically do themselves. It's maybe challenges them, it surprises them, and it could result in magnificent pieces, or really challenging pieces, or pieces that don't work at all. But that's part of the experimentation, to try something and find out and see what happens. And it's probably not a very standard approach. It's maybe an approach that artists in the locality aren't familiar with. Artistic practice is typically a very solitary activity, and this is trying to mix with that and change it and challenge that.
I graduated from NCAD 100 years ago, and I was teaching. I also did the HDIP, so I've been teaching for 20 years, and 3 years ago, just before COVID, I got the studio and found that I was trying to catch up on all my work that I'd missed out while I was teaching. So I'm in Balbriggan Castle, we have studio down there, and I'm a painter primarily, but lately I've started to use other materials in my work, so to explore more three-dimensional, so the paintings kind of become more like objects.
Tina, please tell us your plans in relation with the donated objects.
Okay, so yeah, I opened up and got such a surprise yesterday with the various different work that I have here. But I did kind of get an idea nearly from the beginning of what I didn't want to use before I know what I'm going to use. But so basically, because my work is usually flat based, I would be more drawn to the canvas or the flat drawing and paper. rather than a three-dimensional work. The canvas is a material that I'm very familiar with, but I'm trying to keep away from canvas, so that might be the change. Colour will stay, shape might stay, but I'm trying to change the materials, maybe looking at the other artists' donations, and I'm looking at the paper in these. So using paper, or it could even just be very fine material, because there's a piece of material donated, and I like even just that look of that. It's been used maybe for cleaning, even brushes or something. But the lettering is that stood out for me, because my family were in history of print, and I did do a year in graphic reproduction in Bolton Street, so I have got that graphic background, and it comes out in the work, I think, too. So these are the pieces of lettering that I was going to use for the wording L-A-R-K. As you can see here, these are the donated pieces from one of the artists, Liz, and she would have used, I'd say, typefaces for this project before in the past. So I got influenced by this piece, but I will put my own twist on it and use these pieces of lettering that I had bought from an antique shop down in Wicklow a few months ago. My dad worked in the Irish press for 40 years. So he used to bring me into the Irish press when I was a kid, and I would play with these little pieces of these type of things. So it really was nostalgic to me when I seen these little pieces of typefaces. Plus, I did do a year in graphic reproduction in Bolton Street in the past before my fine art degree. So I've always been interested in lettering. It has come into my work in the past. So these pieces will be used, which are reused over and over again, I'd say, in printing. It's probably about 100 years old. And these are the little pieces of little old frames that I've been using, and elastic bands that's going to be used to like house the piece that I'm using, like this. And this is the cardboard I'm using for the backing of the frame, cage-like structure. This is the cardboard that I was donated by another artist. It's been used before for mounting, so the reusable idea comes in. So everything that's been used in this whole project has been used before in other artworks. And that's the whole idea of the reuse theme.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to see what you came up.
Thank you. Thanks for coming to see the studio.
Thank you, yeah, for
I love when people come in and see and wonder.
So my art practice, it has been based for a long time in found things and found objects. So I believe that the smallest things, the most inconsequential things perhaps, have power, so everything is relevant. That also relates to some of the imagery that develops, feelings that we have. They're not necessarily as super important as, say, identity or that the world's in climate change. They're more about those small things again, small moments. So the smallnesses is what I'm interested in, whether it's about how we behave as humans or what materials we actually have around us and discard. I think what's happening for me is I've come to Ireland with a different modernist set of traditions. I would have studied with a man named Richard Merkin, who would have been a pop artist, very big advocate for collage. So I've come to Ireland with some of the things that go back to Dada. Whilst strangely there have been Dadaists in Ireland even from the very beginning, from 1920, the Guinness Dadaists, it's almost as if the traditions that have been sort of brought to Ireland through perhaps the British colonialism and other things haven't totally been thrown off. So I'm interested in what Irish modernism could be with a lot of the different modernisms. And I'm interested in sharing those with people in Balbriggan.
Part of your practice is collage, and I understand that you are going to show us exactly your creative process.
Yes.
On the theme you decided to go with.
Yes, so I have a small piece of canson paper. Sometimes I work larger, but in this case I think for the show I think it might be nice if it was slightly more intimate than these. These often take quite a while too, and the show I think is only 3 weeks away. So I was thinking that something like this could be managed. So what's happening is I found things that might be relevant. Like I found that this kind of winding kind of river relates to perhaps a path of birth. I found this fish that somehow might relate to a baby being born, a motherhood. This one here, it's sort of a figure locked in within an object, which kind of almost are like vessels. So I decided I'd like that. I found these flowers, which are fertility symbols. You know, they actually end up being about the seed, the beginning as well. And then I found this fruit. Now, key to this is that I was given this by an artist who was thinking about orbs and those shapes. So that's going to be central here. This is going to be glued down, as would these. And I think there's a nice echo there and here. So this is going to form what I describe often is that this would be the melody, and the drawing that I put on top of it are the lyrics. So I actually see my collages as music.
How these two parts are working together.
Right, they become inseparable. So some people ask musicians, what comes first, the melody or the lyric? But I think that the lines that I choose, which are influenced by Matisse and early Picasso and others, I think that they happen simultaneously. They react to what's happening there, or you might need to add more or take away something to make the line dance with the melody, you know? So I'm thinking of doing that, and I think this piece as well was one that I was offered in reuse. But I might use it as a collage element. And it's almost like it's asking for it to be round. So this might be an aspect I glue down. And what I envisage is this image called mother and child. So what ends up happening, Leia, is I do a drawing from my sketchbook. And so some of these would involve mothers. So if I looked within here, here's a mother and a baby. This one here is one that I'm quite fond of. It's breastfeeding. So the orbs of her, the orbs of her breasts relate to the orbs of the fruit, the flowers, this. So I want to do a smaller ink collage that's going to form the backdrop to Mother of Music or Mothers of Musics. And so that's the one I'm going to base it on. Now in preparation, I've done a black and white of it, which helps me see it. So as long as I can see it, it doesn't matter if it's the same blue or the same green, it's just that I need to think about it tonally. Yeah, and so what ends up happening here for me is I still find the word notes maybe is too strong. But everything else is working all right. Maybe that's the kind of her neck, or like her neck veins maybe, but I don't know if that's so important. It doesn't, so that might have to be, but he would be thinking when he was thinking tonally of Goya and Velázquez. So there is something quite interesting about thinking tonally and thinking in color. Yeah, so the issues of tonality. So what I did do is I realized that I don't have a lot of black or dark shapes in this. So I'm thinking about the river. I mean, I could maybe think about putting this near where the neck would be, but I still think I might just scuff it up a little bit, but not necessarily the vagina birth canal. So I think it's maybe better if it's not so dark. So paper, for a collagist, is the palette. And I think people forget that collage, being one of the most important inventions of the 20th century, it isn't just for first-class kids or kindergartners.
It's a very powerful medium of expression.
Yeah. What's cool about collage for me, just like what I was just showing you outside, you don't know till you know, you know? So, what's interesting about collage for me is, in say a collage back here, the quilt might be very bright and very busy with color, but the background could be quite atmospheric about the ending of the day. Usually in a painting, an artist is told to make it coherent to itself. Collage doesn't have to be coherent to itself.
It breaks the rules.
It breaks the rules of painterly issues. So I can play with collage. So I'm thinking of incorporating these two as collage elements into a background work that will probably be on some type of stand. It won't be hung on the wall.
And do you consider taking this piece apart as well, or just using it as a unitary piece?
I think I'm just going to glue that down, and then I might glue pieces across it. Yeah, I think that it's just so elegant. It's very beautiful. I mean, I do adore it.
I love the texture and the color as well.
Yet it is kind of dripping orbs. It's almost as if they're eggs that have been broken and spilled. So this issue of fertility and flowers and rich deltas seem to all be pointing towards maybe the beginning of creativity, or the beginning of the birth, the beginning of something. You know, so this project, as curator, I want to tell you, is perfect for me because I love exploring and investigating and inventing. In fact, these sketches come originally from collage, then I pull them out of sketchbooks, and so I have nearly 5,000 little thumbnail sketches that have that Shakespearean sweep. I'm not just doing black and tans, I'm not just doing rivers and Meath, I'm doing what it means to be alive. Part of that is to be a mother and breastfeed and be born. So, and I'm linking it to music because the birds outside make sounds. They screech to each other. They almost tell each other where the bugs are in the evening. So I'm very excited about the project. I'm going to be making an ink collage and a sculpture collage that are going to be an installation.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to see the results.
I have a degree in printmaking and in painting, but I dabble with lots of different mediums. It's, you know, don't stick with the one. The one thing that seems to be constant in my work is like a team going towards the essence of things, source of things. In a very broad way, it could be like some of my early work was around the mother goddess, but then I did some work around the basic shapes or sounds or proverbs, or even just going back to the very, very basic of working with earth and fire.
A lot of my work starts with an idea, so I don't really know how things are going to look like when they're finished. And when I look back at the work I've made, a lot goes about the source of things or the essence of things. So when I picked this work here, I was quite surprised to find figures like Mother Mary and Child and Christ. Now, I've done in the past the Mother Goddess as a source, and in a way Mother Mary is the Mother Goddess. So all these kind of like make me think a bit of what can I do? You have this circular piece. It could be, you know, I think Christ has something like, I'm not really so good with my biblical knowledge, but I think he said something like, you have to go through me to go to heaven, or I am the gate, or something. So these circular shapes could be like the gate to heaven, or
Okay, so you always approach your work from a conceptual perspective.
yeah. Sometimes it could also be an idea in how to do things, you know, without an idea. I don't know if that's very clear.
It's
Like
more
process. It could be
material-based process.
It could be, yes, material. Yes, it could be like, no, okay, I like to kind of like work with paint in different layers and then sand back down so you have all the layers showing. So that would be more like process-based. But in general, there would be then an idea on top that kind of like gives it like a visual element.
That's good. Thank you very much. And for the objects we have here on the table, what are your plans?
Okay, so this one here, I thought the back was very interesting. You know, the rubbing, the marking, the mark making actually on the back is so much more, for me, interesting than the front. So it kind of like made me think as well of when I have then this figure here, to make a rubbing or an imprint, a bit like the Shroud of Turin. And I actually have started experimenting with my jelly plates. And one of them, you know, you can kind of like see a few things that I tried. So, you know, a few different ideas that I'm working on. Again, it's only the very start. It could be completely different. Yeah, that's what else caught my eye. In one way, you would think, because I've made a lot of shapes around the circular shape. So you had these that remind me here of the Mother Mary figure that where you see the baby Jesus holding one breast, but also a ball. I'm not really sure if it's supposed to be the earth or just a ball to play with. I'll have to do a bit of research around that. So I thought, okay, I can still do something with that round shape, and then maybe link it in with these round shapes. Yeah, so what was also interesting in the pile, I got this book of 1938, the story of the Bible. So again, in one way it's kind of funny, because a lot of my ideas go towards source, and in a way the Bible could be a source of the divine. And one of the first things I read was Beneath the Blazing Summer Sky in Palestine. For me, just even reading that sentence with what's happening at the moment is like, okay, yeah, they're trying to eradicate the history of Palestine. Yeah, it's just something that's like, okay, because you know, it is something that's on my heart at the moment. So it's not, you know, in one way, it's not unusual that it's been handed over to me and you know, it could well be that I have to do something with it. So yeah, everything is still very. Yeah, I can go in any direction, really.
That's amazing. To be honest, we are here to see the behind the scenes, your creative process, and that trial and error and the tests are just telling a story by itself. So that's amazing. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
I'm a graduate of NCAD. I studied fine art there in the 1970s. It was a very chaotic time in the art teaching practice, I would say. So it would have had its ups and downs. I did actually study substrate printing there, which I haven't actually tried in Windows yet, but hopefully I will. I think a lot of people find art colleges quite traumatic, and so did I. I have mixed feelings about it. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
I moved to Balbriggan about 30 years ago when Maggie, my youngest daughter, was about a year old. After a couple of years I worked out of my kitchen, and then I was lucky enough to be offered a place in Sunland Studios at the very beginning of its time, and that was really wonderful. It reconnected me with other artists, and that sense of isolation that I might have had as a young mom and a single mom at that in a new town. Really, it changed everything, and obviously influenced my work practice. At that time I worked mostly in pastels, always having to have a frugal attitude to almost everything. I made my own pastels. It's a very simple process. If I had had Google in those days, it would have been even more simple. But so I have always been interested in at the beginning it probably wasn't in sustainability. This is a long time ago. It was purely a matter of economics and prudence in my use of materials. Even at that stage I was already trying to make paper, trying to make my pastels, trying to make oil pastels, trying to speculate. That's a very secret recipe, a recipe for oil pastels, but eventually I found a way of making a workable oil pastel. And then time moved on, Sunlight Studios came to an end. I had some success with my work and selling it, and I put a studio in my garden. And I continued. And then, because my work is mostly always and has been always been drawing based, printmaking just happened. All I had at this point was a photographic reference Muriel had sent to me. So the first thing I did was I sat down with the phone and my photograph, and I just recorded, you know, a set of dinosaurs, a brick, a car, Superman. I crossed out the ones that I couldn't see anything that I could do. It weren't jumping at me at all. Muriel's one, I immediately knew, because it's textured, that I would try to print it as a colograph and then use it in my book.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain what's a colograph?
A colograph is a print, and you make the plate by adding things, adding texture and movement to it. I'll just pick up the plate so that you can see it. So a colograph is printed by another technical word, which is intaglio. So I will ink all of this plate up. I'll put ink on it everywhere. I will try to push the ink into all the little crevices, and then I will take off all the surface ink. Then I will get a piece of dampened paper and I will run it through the press. The dampened paper will travel into every crevice, and I will get a little bit of surface, what they call plate tone, on these areas that are smooth, but the ink will have found all the crevices. That's intaglio, and that's how I hope to print this. And then this I will use in the book as part of the background, or I can print it several times. It's not. Now this is where my own work and this extra imagery started coming together. So I have a little grandchild called Oisín, the child I was over there minding. Oisín is quite a big baby, like he's 9 months old, but he's large, and he has this habit of holding his hands out in a kind of a almost godlike way. So he's going to be my baby creator. So I'm going to, and he also reminds me of my father. When he smiles, he is wearing my father's smile. And then that tied into the idea of a continuation. So he will be cascading imagery over his outstretched
There's
hands.
baby Oshima over
Yeah,
there.
baby Oshin. There will be other little babies maybe using up the space. There will be at somewhere maybe hidden hints of my dad. I have many portraits in woodblock done of my father. I thought of tying the brick to it. I probably won't do that. And this is Tina's frame, and already I had an idea that it was going to be a diorama box. Again, I'm just playing with this outstretched hands of the baby. I will make four pages, 4 spreads. Again, when you'll see this repeated back further. So if I wanted to exhibit it as a object, I can take it out of the book and I can display it as an accordion piece across the wall. So all 4 pages will be visible at the same time. But I can then put them back in the book as individual pieces. So over there I have Muriel's typewriter. And with Muriel's typewriter, I am going to type tiny little streamers with all the names of the dinosaurs that I can find. And I'm going to attach them like little ribbons to various things on each page.
That's a very good idea.
These are little geometric. This is one of the ways they teach children about geometric forms. So I'm going to use them again on another page as part of his thing that he does. So if I make this little box, again, I have done it already, I know it works, and I can put a print on the front and a print on the back. It'll be almost invisible, but if you pull this string, the box will close
It's a
up.
3D.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this is 2 patterns for the same thing. So maybe if you could see him sitting with his hands out, and then above him will be, they will obviously be strings, but anyone can pull the strings and tidy them up.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I can't see anything else there that I can't. This is just the designs for how to make the cards that will flip. I liked the idea of when my 4 pages open, that they have this. I have to just make sure they all come out. So I might put a little dry point etching of my baby creator in this little thing, and he'll be backwards, like that. So it's what I'm doing is, it's a little trick, but so he'll be there like drawn in, but that's his page. He'll be there doing his thing, but when it's opened out, he'll also be there, or a different baby or something. So I don't know if you remember when you were small, certainly when I was small, you could buy a card and it had bars on it, and you could pull it.
To see the movement.
So with that card, that is what I'm going to do. This is the size of the cards that the baby creator would have if he wanted to do it. Like there's a very famous Alice in Wonderland pop-up book. It's a classic, and they used the playing cards to do it. Obviously, I am not fond of playing card imagery, and I would be overloading everything with another set of images. So that's the size I would have to make them. The little drawings, the little dry point etchings these would be. So this is me begin. So this is how I'd have to begin. I would have to make an etching of, the pillars. I would have to then put it on, laminate it onto a piece of card, then take out this and cut those out. Then I would have to do, say, two etchings this size. Then I would have to cut them into strips and put them back together. So one strip would have one dinosaur, the other strip would have the other dinosaur. Alternatively, and then when you pull them, you know, you have one or the other. I don't know. That's as far as I got. My notebook is now over for now.